Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for the delay. We just had a small technical issue. But welcome to the AAA Customer Experience webinar. My name is Garry Porter. I'm the General Manager of Mackay Airport, also a Director and Board Member of AAA, and the Vice Chair of Mackay Regional Tourism. The purpose of today, or the format that I'd like to run with today, is more in terms of just some generic thoughts and processes to spark some conversation across the industry rather than deep diving into specific items. I think each airport is different with their own unique challenges, and so I wouldn't mind just calling out some fundamentals that I think are imperative, some tips and tricks that are being used by different airports, and then wrap it up and discuss a way forward for customer experience in Australia and in particular airports. Customer experience and customer service has become buzzwords in the customer-centric world. Customer experience, customer service, and even customer care are so confusing that often businesses don't bother to invest separately, and yet they are all different. According to Oracle report, customer experience will overtake price and product as the key differentiation in 2021 financial years. On the other hand, the same report says that 83% of customers will require support or service to complete their purchases. Also, web leads are 9 times more likely to convert if they are followed up within under 5 minutes. Customer experience is the total journey of a customer with a particular brand, from discovering to understanding, purchasing, sentiments, and after actually using a product. Also, this includes emotional, physical, psychological inclination toward the brand. Customer experience includes all touch points and mediums that businesses are using at the time, and it is not a one-off experience. There are some basic elements, like I mentioned previously. An organization tends to focus on specific touch points and often fail to address all aspects. A holistic process can deliver tangible and sustainable development. And the 4 key elements that I believe that lead to a successful customer experience approach are inspiration, which is a comprehensive vision, which is necessary if you're running a customer-centric business. Moreover, you have to identify targets and then plan accordingly. Insights, analyze customer satisfaction rates and develop inferences. Then relate these facts and figures with key performance indicators and business objectives. Improvement, based on the insights, radically design the strategy to redesign the journey of the customer experience from start to finish. Institutionalization, shift all business processes from the front line to a customer-centric approach. Changing the business processes mean you should change the culture within your organization to a more customer-centric approach. I'd like to call out that some of the slides I'm about to show references directly from some airports and some industry consumer bodies. At no stage am I making any inference towards the ability of the airport or the product. It is more just to give you a generalized overview of some of the key areas I've just highlighted. Inspiration in particular is, most airports have a vision. Does that vision actually translate and transfer through all levels of the business? And when I say the business, I mean all stakeholders, whether they be internal or external. And I've just got a couple of examples here where the vision statement on some of the airport websites may not actually cut through all levels. Airport number 1, at X Airport, our vision is to deliver a world-class airport experience and foster the growth of aviation for the benefit of the region and Australia. Airport 2, their website says, Airport X is the X gateway to the world and a vital asset as an anchor employer for the local region. Our vision is to create an airport that everyone in the region can be proud of and deliver tangible benefits to the local area. And finally, the last one is to be the most successful airport business in Australasia. And we can achieve this developing a non-commercial aviation portfolio of more than $200 million. They don't really cut through in terms of what you're trying to achieve from a customer experience perspective. They mention, and but all three of them have a customer component. But the next slide is actually a good example of a landing page when you look for the customer experience or their vision around customer experience. Most of the airports, though, also have their own customer charters, which is totally different and are normally a lot harder to find from a customer's perspective to look at the charter. So normally the vision statement or the mission statement that's up front on a web page is the first thing a customer will read. And those three examples are probably not the examples that you want to promote as your first point of contact to a customer. Here's another airport that on their landing page is very clear about how they want to communicate to their customers and their potential customers. Airport X, the operator of Airport X, proudly takes on the challenge of connecting Australia to the rest of the world every day and building a place where community can work and play. We are creating X Future, helping employ thousands of people and fostering cultural and economic growth, contributing more than $4 billion annually to the state's economy. In connecting the world and creating the future, our customers, our community, employees, and stakeholders take center stage. And this is where I mentioned on the previous slides, this is a cut through to all levels of the business, whether it be the customers, the community, the employees, or the shareholders. They all have a responsibility to be part of the process. The next component down is community, which they've referenced. What do we impact on our regions and vice versa? By focusing on balancing the benefits of the airport, connecting people, boosting the economy, with the challenges, the impact of our growth, our neighbours. We earn our license to grow, and an open and honest relationship with the community is key. Customers, without our customers, we wouldn't be there where we are today. By creating and innovating with them in mind, our services can be better, safer, more sustainable, and future focused. Employees, their passion for building the future of this airport is the fuel in their engine. And shareholders, their shareholders believe in what they do and want them to succeed. By creating value for our employees, customers, and community, we create a sustainable value for our shareholder as well. And this goes back to that fundamental component in slide number 1, which was, do you actually understand your role? Do you understand the insights and what your relationship is with your community, with your customers, with your employees, let alone your shareholder? I think this slide demonstrates through and through that this airport on their landing page is actually trying to connect with the wider community to give them confidence that they are putting them first and foremost. I did forget to mention there is a chat bar that or a question bar, which I'm happy to take questions along the way. Insights. These are the key questions that I would be asking anyone that was looking at customer experience. What are you trying to achieve? There is no point in collecting data for the sake of data. Who's going to use the data? More importantly, who's going to own the data within your organization? The most underutilized source of data are actually airport ASIC holders. They're living and breathing the environment within an airport every day. Let's go back through those again. What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve a greater customer spend? Are you trying to achieve more passengers through your airport? How can you pull that up if you're not collecting data? If you're not collecting data, how do you know what is happening in your airport? Then there's no point in collecting data for the sake of data. One of the biggest traps that companies fall into is that they go and buy these systems or they buy processes, and then no one actually knows how to use the data. So the question I would throw back to the community is, who's going to use your data, and more importantly, who's going to own it? And in this point, I believe everyone owns the data, and everyone owns the customer. And finally, like I mentioned, the airport ASIC holders are going through your airports day in, day out, and they're the greatest source of information in terms of what's working in and around your airport, what could be done. And I don't think there are a lot of airports that are actually using the airport ASIC holders or surveying them as probably much as they probably could. Insights. There are multiple companies. There are hundreds and hundreds of companies. Predominantly in Australia, there's a few that most airports use. And Airport Council International ASQ program is probably the one that's used by the major airports. And the reason they use it is because the methodology is the same, and that they have a requirement to report back to the ACCC around their customer satisfaction every year. In terms of the ASQ, it covers 34 key service areas, including 8 major categories, which is access, which is ground transport, check-in, security, airport facilities, food and beverage, and a few other items. All participating airports use the same questions and the same survey questionnaires. This creates an industry standard set of responses that allow you to track and analyze your airport's performance, as well as benchmark yourself against other airports in your local market and across the globe. All participating airports see the ASQ results from all other airports. So it's fully open and disclosed, the performance. At a previous airport that I was employed at, we did use ASQ. ASQ is a very good framework to gather and benchmark against other airports. The only component I would say about ASQ, it is the data could be 3 months, 4 months old, which doesn't allow you to be on the front foot to be able to manage your customer and the issues that are at hand at the time. You're always looking back in the mirror, and you're not looking on day of ops, or you're not looking forward. But it certainly gives you the ability. There's the methodology is questionnaires are distributed at the departure gate by on-site field workers. The questionnaires are completed by passengers selected according to a plan, which is determined by ASQ to ensure there is statistical accuracy. The completed questionnaires are collected by field agent works and then are returned back to Canada for the ASQ team to then collect the data. The results are analysed and reports are distributed to participating airports. Like I said, normally some of the data can be up to 3 or 4 months past when the last survey was actually conducted. These can be surveys can be conducted once a year, every 6 months, or quarterly, which is what most of the Australian airports are signed up to, with costs ranging between $15,000 and $100,000 per annum, depending on how far you want to go and what insights you'd like to collect. This is a good example. This is a good example of an international framework that we could use in this country. That we currently have 12, I think, airports in Australia and New Zealand using this system, and it is one that gives us all 8 touch points of the customer journey and allows those airports to make some decisions going forward. Then there's a ASQ Barometer that or a spreadsheet that comes out every quarter, which is basically a snapshot. For those that aren't participating in the quarterly or only want to pay for a yearly sample, they are still getting the information. And if you have a look in the middle, there's actually personas that are attached regarding the people and the demographics. And I won't get into those today, but that is valuable data around age demographic, male, female demographic, so that you can then target how you would like your airport to look and feel going forward. You'll also see the snake on the bottom left-hand corner, which then actually shows the score out of 5 in terms of the airport's performance versus the region's performance, and then it goes through the journey. I think this is a key piece of the fundamental of understanding your customer, is that there is no point in concentrating on one single item, like I mentioned in my first slide. that it needs to be a continuum. There is no point in having a high score at check-in to then get to security and then be roadblocked, because studies show and research show that as soon as you get to a roadblock, the customer satisfaction journey then tends to wane past that point. So you'd need to look at a traffic light style system where you'd like to ensure that they had a green light pathway all the way through the journey. Here's one that is currently also in the market in Australia, which is real-time customer experience insights and how it can transform a business. These are mobile devices that can be used via QR code. They can be on portable stands, and they can also be free text. They can be placed at any outlet, anytime, and the data is live, which means if you have a problem within your airport or within your business, you will be able to find that challenge immediately and divert the resources that are required to go and have a look. And one of the key fundamentals is normally toilets. Toilets around airports is probably one of the ones that seems to get hit a lot. And so you can instruct your cleaners, or text messages would be able to go to your cleaners from this data. And this is the infographic from these guys, from this company. It gives you an hourly breakdown. It gives you a breakdown of each unit, so you can have a naming convention for each unit around your airport, and it will give you the ability to sit down and have a discussion with your retailer, your airline, your security provider, your cleaning, and the cost of these are as little as $500 to $1,000 per device per year. And the airports that have got them today, I think, have got about 10 devices. So when you compare the cost from the international versus a low-cost version that you could put in your terminal, this is a pretty good option. There are plenty others. Like I mentioned, there are a lot of surveying companies out there. Q&A from Brisbane. I know different airports use them for different mechanisms. When I'm not advocating for either or either, each airport has their own specific needs and challenges. And once again, it's about how you're going to use the data if you get the data, and how you're going to transfer that into your customers. I think I've got a couple of requests. One of the questions is, can we get a copy of the presentation? The answer is yes. Moving on to improvements, and going back to the customer journey again. Improvements can't be done by one stakeholder. They have to be contributed by all aspects of the business. So that means that you need to bring in your airline partners, your security partners, and alike. There's a couple of infographs in there for a bit of a laugh, but it's imperative once again that the customer journey is not held up at one checkpoint, because research shows that if a customer has a seamless transfer through an airport or through a customer journey, they're more likely to spend. And so on the next slide, and this is no way, there's hundreds and thousands. I've just selected some of the bigger operators in this country in terms of airports and how we deal with them day in, day out, from retailers to ground handling agencies to government agencies. We all have a part to play in how customer experience is delivered across airports. Without our cooperation and without cooperation between all these parties, customer experience will continue to never improve in this manner in airports in Australia. Some airports have taken the approach to put service level agreements against ground handling companies to ensure baggage delivery times are met. Once again, each airport with their own unique challenges and alike should look at how they wish to manage those sorts of situations. Working with retailers like Delaware North or Emirates Retail or Katie Cares or AWPL around ensuring that the satisfaction of customers and product selection is actually there. Working with the airlines around opening and closing times, customer service agents to look after baggage handling inquiries, etc. And don't forget our good friends at Department of Home Affairs when it comes to border force and processing times on international arrivals. They also have a part to play. Everyone needs to come together and everyone needs to be able to share the data to create the insights required to deliver a better customer experience within airports. The AAA actually has a customer experience working group. It started in 2015 with a small group of Australian airports who were participants in the Airport Council International ASQ, and is now a fully functioning working group with representatives from over 18 airports across Australia and New Zealand. The group's focus is to adapt commonality across airports, large and small, with the customer always put first. And once again, not singling or missing people out. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth have been leading the way in the hidden disability space. They've been working with autism bodies. They've been looking at putting in spaces, quiet zones in airports for people that have auditory problems or sensory abnormalities. They're looking at putting in benches into disabled toilets so that adults that currently need to have hygiene changes within airports are currently being put on floors will now have a adequate space to be able to have some sanitary changes in a dignified manner going forward. Gold Coast has got a better looking version of me with Garry, their emotional support dog. And the group met last week, and we were currently discussing the COVID-19 recovery from an Australia-New Zealand approach in terms of signage, social distancing. It's not to be confused with the bigger working group, including the airlines, which is the Australian Aviation Recovery Coalition. They are doing a very big bulk of work. We're just putting up suggestions from a customer perspective on how we think that we could minimise expenditure but maximise opportunity for signage around terminals to ensure there is a consistent approach Australia-wide as part of any COVID-19 recovery. The group meets 4 times a year, normally 3 times of those via web and 1 time face-to-face. Last year we met in Bali at the ASQ Global Forum in Bali, where we all got together. Even though some airports weren't ASQ participants, we went to the ACI forum and we actually worked through some more framework for this year. This has come leaps and bounds in the last 4 or 5 years. There was a lot of work done by Claire from Sydney Airport in terms of getting this off the ground and maintaining the drive in this space. And you know, from her work and the dedication of some of the others around the country, we've now actually made it a formal working group within AAA. It goes to show that if people are there and they're committed and that they all want to sing from the same hymn book and create a consistent approach to customer experience around Australia, then these sorts of things will work going forward. The wrap. Customer experience may feel different at each airport, and they should, as the demographic in terms of each of the types of travellers in each airport have different needs and wants. What is always evolving is the customer experience. As you gain greater insight into your customers, the more likely they are to buy something, travel more often, and most importantly, be your biggest voice to the rest of your community, which is very similar to what Brisbane and some of the other airports have been doing in terms of their work, particularly with new runways and infrastructures and a lot. Those that stand still will be left behind. I think it goes back to my very first component, which was the 4 key pillars going forward are understanding your community, understanding the customers, employees and shareholders, and using the insights, the inspiration, the improvement, and the institutionalization to deliver a better customer experience across our airports. I thank you for your time and look forward to any questions. Biggest airport in Australia. Is Mackay really the biggest airport you can think of on this slide? Mackay Airport is the best airport in central Queensland, I have to say. Has anyone got any real questions? I know some, with the COVID situation around the country right now, finances and expectation from boards and councils and alike is very mindful for every airport, which is why coming out of COVID, I think understanding your customer will be key to enabling recovery in particularly regional airports to enable spend rates and customer satisfaction, but also customer confidence in being able to travel again, I think will be key. Got a question from the Oricon group. Interested to know whether AAA has done any work on a coordinated approach to behaviour change in areas such as nudging customers to have better behave better around baggage carousels and baggage reclaim. It's an interesting one. I think if you have a look at other to answer your question, I think there has been some minor work on it, but in terms of major work, I don't believe that has been done. But if you look at other airports and other regions around the world, the transit time from gates to baggage carousels is a lot longer than what it is in Australia. We're very lucky that we've got infrastructure that allows passengers to get off an aircraft, and in certain airports can be at a baggage claim within 5 minutes, and in most airports it's 10 minutes. I think the behaviour around carousels is one that we need to look at, but at the same time we need to ensure that we can offer a solution around baggage delivery being in a more timely manner as well. And at the back end of it, of it all, I think the important thing is, particularly around social distancing and physical distancing, no final decisions being made on that right now. Another question that's come through is the piece of work being done by the Australian Aviation Recovery Commission open to all to contribute and to read? I'll take that on notice. As far as I know, what do I see? There is a selected working group from airlines and from airports from Australia, and they were selected based on size and from around different components of the country. I don't believe any of the work has been finalised or formalised yet. So as soon as that comes out, I'm sure Simon and the AAA team and Sam will then share that information as soon as it becomes. I think they're still working through the systems and processes in terms of what that will look like. I think we're all keen to understand what does that mean for us, and how can we take it forward. What's my opinion on volunteers or ambassador programs to suit? Once again, each airport is different, and the requirements are different. I think during this time, I think everyone's taken the very safe approach with ambassadors and volunteers and made sure that their safety has come first in this through COVID. And on the back of it, I think we may see a different approach in terms of how volunteers, ambassadors, and alike come back on board to airports. And I know some of the Asian airports, which are very keen on robots and virtual are going to move that way quick. I don't know how quick that will move in terms of virtual reality or augmented components will come into this country. But I think volunteers and ambassadors certainly have a place, depending on the airport and the circumstances within that airport. What do you think the major major game changer that Mackay has undertaken since its current focus? The number one game changer that we've taken has been that we no longer sit around the table as individuals. We actually sit around the table as a collective, and now we look at the customer journey. So if we're looking at the security screening point upgrades that most airports are having to go through this year and next year, and some have asked for deferral even later, and I hope you get it, is that we now have all of the leaders within my business sitting around the table talking about what does the build look like, what does what does it do to a customer, what does it do to signage, how can we ensure that if we're going down this pathway that we've communicated upfront with our airline partners, we've communicated upfront with our ground handlers, we've communicated upfront with our retailers, we've looked at how the impact will have on our processing of customers through security. So we've looked at it from each relevant department and what impact that will be, and set up a framework that each manager now has to go away and report back to me every month on the status of those changes to ensure that we haven't left anyone out of the loop when it comes to the proposed changes in the future, so that when we do go into actual construction phase, there should be no anomalies coming about as we move through the process. And I know there's another question. In all seriousness, how do we measure the performance of our regional airports based on various sizes, remote, small, medium, and large? Are there any standards? That's a good question. That's one of the things that the AAA working group actually wants to develop and recommend back to the AAA and to the members, is that what we'd like to do in the future is actually make sure that there is a minimum framework that everyone can deliver, and it's simple things. It's like wayfinding. It is, do you have a disability access plan on your website? It is not putting additional cost and burden on small, medium regional airports, particularly those that are council run, knowing that they've got their own challenges in themselves. But what it'll do, it'll allow people to access information, guidance notes, best practice from the working group component that can be used for small regional or medium regional airports, so that when they are asking money from councils or boards or whatever it is, that they've actually got a framework that is being tried and tested across the country already. What is the difference between customer service and customer experience? We could be here all day talking the difference. Ultimately, like I said, the experience is the touch and feel, and the service is the delivery. So, like I said, I could be here all day talking about those, but we won't. How are we managing physical distancing measures currently through the health departments in terms of COVID? We see this as a major challenge due to people gathering. That's ongoing. That's a big one. There was a comment in one of our working groups the other day that if there was 100 people on a 7.3 today, as per the social distancing protocols on the minimum national network, that you'd need 150 metres of error bridge boarding gate area to accommodate. Is that practical? And then yet they're going to go and sit on board next to people. That's probably something that the wider group will look at in terms of where we see the realistic approach. I think as we've seen through a lot of the community today, is a lot of people have been following the protocols that are being put in place. I don't think airports are the place to continue to put that down people's throats when they come. I think it's about at all the entry points into airports that there's signage that says remember you need to physical or social distance. And then when you get to a check-in, something very similar. When you get to security, I don't think we need to over commit, and I think people will self-regulate. And one of the comments the other day was, how many times do you go to an airport departure gate and people are already self-regulating because they've got bags between one another and alike? So we will obviously feed up from a customer experience component into the wider group, but we think it's making sure that there's sensible self-regulating signage and potentially hand sanitizer if that's required, but trying to be as minimalistic as possible, but directly communicate what the requirements of the day. And as we know, the requirements are changing in each state weekly, And so you can't go and put signage out that has to be changed weekly. You need to be able to put some very, very focused and targeted messaging that will allow people. That will be, we're not the police, and I don't think we should be held accountable to ensure that they're doing it either. Apart from airports, bathrooms, where have you seen most commonly found the biggest customer experience roadblocks based on collected passenger data? Other roadblocks have been at each airport is different again. Some airports is during peak times, you go through peak security, then go peak check-in, peak security, and then on the flip side, on the arrivals process, there's people trying to get buses, there's multiple flights on carousels. So no airport is the same, and each one has their own unique challenge, which is why we all share what we're all finding, and then looking at how each one of us has actually worked to solve those issues in our own airports. And then that's where the insights actually back up our decision making. So each airport's different, like I've said. Each airport's got their own unique challenges, but it is those choke points around check-in during, when airlines want to throw all the capacity at 6 a.m. to get on the East Coast, 5 p.m., 4 o'clock, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. in the afternoon. Each airport's different. If you get negative customer feedback, do you give any feedback to the customer in terms of the changes that you've made or based? We do. So from our airport, I can say that we do. I don't know all airports. Once again, all airports are different, but I believe most of the customer experience working group members certainly do go back to their customers. Mind you, some of them actually have a team that look after it. I can certainly tell you we don't have a team in Mackay looking after it, but each airport is different. And in a previous airport I worked at, we actually went through and looked at the customer feedback that was coming through on a regular basis, because you obviously get a trend of why they're complaining, and then you should also have other data that should back it up. So once again, it's taking all the different aspects, and customer feedback is only one component of the customer experience trail, and feedback is certainly one of them. And airports should look at that feedback as a positive, not as a negative, because they are, like I said, particularly airport employees with ASICs, they are the greatest gift. That's the greatest gift you can get, are people coming through your airport, whether they're customers or employees, because they're living and breathing it every day. I don't think we've got any further questions, folks. Nope. If there's no more questions, I think we've finished a little bit early, but I'm happy for anyone. We'll send this presentation out to everyone. Happy for anyone to contact me in terms of our Australian Airports Customer Experience Working Group, in terms of any challenges in terms of regional airports. I'm as a board member, as I mentioned before. If not, enjoy your Wednesday, and I'll do a quick shout out to the team from the Customer Experience Working Group. We have a hashtag that we call #legit, so that every time that we come up with something that we believe is something worthwhile putting forward, we always yell out the #legit. And we've also got someone on the line today that's celebrating a birthday up in Darwin Airport. So happy birthday to you. Other than that, thanks very much, everyone. I appreciate you joining the webinar, and I hope you got something out of it. Enjoy the rest of your day.